Right then, must be 7 o'clock. I'm aware that if this video gets any sort of traction or views, I'm gonna get some side effects to it, some reoccurrences, but I'm willing to put it out there. I'm going to keep the video relatively short because I want to keep it a sort of a question and answer sort of thing. I can get more out there that way, I think if I can gauge what you guys want to know and what goes on, I can give you those answers. I can only tell you really from my experience. Now, I've worked in 2 prisons across an area. The first prison I worked at was predominantly sex offenders, which I'm going to get, I don't know how you work with those guys, but it was part and parcel of it really. I left that prison to work closer to home. That was always the plan. There was no vacancies at my prison, which was in my city at the time, so I went and worked away. When I came back to work in the city, the prison was run a lot differently. It was a Cat B, so a lot of guys on remand and things like that. I went into this job thinking that I would be able to help people. I know everyone says that, but that is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to help, and I came across a lot of people that just wanted to be bullies. The old, the guys that were failed coppers and then became prison officers because it was too hard to get into the police, basically. Those guys, and it's difficult working with those guys when you're really trying to help someone, and their response to that is, why are you trying to help out a con for? Well, it's sort of my job. It's not my job to walk around and lord it over guys behind doors that have, not everyone's a good guy, but sometimes good people do bad things, and that's someone's dad, that's someone's brother, etc. So I would hope that a member of staff, if one of my relatives went to prison, would be helpful, to say the least. Just the minimum, the bare minimum, is to treat them like a human being. I've seen officers stick their hands in people's food as they walk past, knock trays out of people's hands, just ridiculous stuff. Random searches. Let me tell you, from working at prison and security and things like that, there is no random searches. That goes for staff as well. So if they suspect that you're a little bit dodgy, if you have too much of a relationship with prisoners, cons, whatever you want to call them, there'll be a lot of random searches going on every time you come in. A lot of buzzers going off every time you come in. A lot of dog searches going off every time you come in. It was amazing when I first got there because I was sort of fresh meat, and I was asked if I was married or I had a partner. I said yes, and they said, oh, that will change when you get here. Which I had experienced. I've worked in the care sector before, and there is a sort of a culture of, you spend so much time with people, working in the same environment, so many hours locked away, especially in a prison service where there's no contact outside, there's no mobile phones, and the people you work with, you do grow close connections with very quickly if you are alike. And I get that, but I was told very early on that my marriage wouldn't stand a chance working in the prison service, and I did find that more often than not, most people's partner worked in the prison service on the same wing or a different wing. There was a huge conflict of interest that, to be honest, caused a lot of issues, and it was never really, you can't keep that kind of thing. It's like living in a big house, basically. It's a giant house. The cons know your business straight away. They know who finds you attractive. They can hear you through their doors. I found that the bullies were always the ones that managed to get their way to the top of the tree. So you'd have your prison officers, and then you'd have your CMs. After your seniors, obviously, your SOs, you get your CMs, and more often than not, they're always arseholes. They always forget where they come from. They're always on a fast track from either being a super arsehole or shagging their way to the top. That's my experience anyway. I'm going to get a lot of stick for that. But my CM was a massive dickhead. I had a lot of family troubles at the time, and I was accused of making them up. What I will say about the prison service as well is that it becomes like this incestual family. It becomes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And your business becomes very public very quickly if you don't keep your thoughts to yourself. If you come in and you're a person who likes to try and make a change and try and make a bit of a movement, you're stamped down straight away. You're part of if you're part of some sort of individual movement to try and make things better, you're sort of trying to change the wheel, trying to reinvent the shape of the wheel, which was never the case. Just trying to do my job, just trying to help people out, but you're always getting called out for it. I've pulled in numerous times to say that 4 or 5 members of staff that I've worked with have said that I was acting dodgy. By dodgy, they mean having a rapport with prisoners. I mean, going into the job, I always thought that was the idea, that was bridging the gap between an authoritarian, someone in charge, someone with a set of keys, and someone who was behind the door. There had to be that bridging gap, and I wanted to be that. I wanted to be able to have a chat with them. I wanted to be able to talk to them without being seen as a grass. I know that comes with a job, you are a grass. I always found that the arseholes always managed to make their way to the top. Your SOs, your CMs, they all know each other. They all spend time with each other outside of the prison service. It becomes very incestual. It becomes not what you know, but who you know. And it sort of becomes this sort of like ladder of who's next to get the position. Doesn't matter about your abilities, doesn't matter about how often you're there, how much overtime you're doing. It's all about who's most popular and who's next in line, which I guess is the political way in any sort of authoritarian place like the police and the prison service. What I did find when I did first join it, I just felt like I was surrounded by bullies, guys that were, again, just police officers that had failed, just didn't make the marks to be police officers. It's too hard. It's too hard. And they're employing, I'm 34, they're employing 18 to 22-year-olds predominantly, because they're malleable and they're easily influenced by what someone says to them, which is very strange because they go on about how easily you can be groomed and manipulated by cons, and you do so much training around it, and then you've got an 18, 20-year-old coming tapping you on the shoulder and asking, Gov, can you come and help me bang someone up because they won't go away? That's because you're 20 years old and you're telling someone who's 40 years old to go to bed at 7 o'clock. Now, I don't know how your life works, but if I tried knocking on my dad's door and telling him to go to bed, he'd tell me to fuck off. The main occasion really that I can think of that sort of shocked me was that I was working over at dinner time, which you're staffed to do sometimes and you're rotated to do, and a bell went off on the 3s, I think it was. Anyone who's familiar with the prison service will know that term. It's obviously the 3rd floor. I went up there, and although the guy wasn't in this situation, he wasn't feeling this way, he was trying to manipulate the system to get what he wanted. He did say that, Gov, if I don't get to speak to a CM now, I'm going to kill myself. So that's my duty now, to go down and report it to my senior officer, which I did. I went down there and I said to him, so-and-so on the 3s has just said if he can't speak to a CM, he's going to kill himself. And the response I got to that was, have you told anyone else yet? I was a bit confused, and I just said, no, I came straight to you, sir. This is my senior. And he said, well, just keep your mouth shut then, because that would be brilliant, because it'd be one less dickhead to deal with tomorrow if he's dead. Which puts me in a position of, do I go and report that hire and tell his friend who got him that job? which would then get me possibly the sack. Because believe me, in prison they can find a way of getting you out, and I experienced that because I did make some noise about certain things, and all of a sudden I was getting called in for leaving gates open that I didn't leave open, or leaving doors open that I didn't leave open. And I was told that while I was sat in their lunch meeting room once, that it's funny how since all the new starters have come in that there's more drugs on the unit, which to me is an open threat of keep your mouth shut, otherwise we'll make sure something's found in your bag for security to find. And I was finding that people were leaving doors open and they were marking it down as my signature. There has been times where I've heard crashing and banging, and then it's you're on response, so you go to the door and the door's being pinned shut by another officer with his back turned up against the glass, so you can't see what's going on or you can't get in. And then you see 3 or 4 officers pulling someone who's clearly got mental health issues out of a cell, who's beaten quite badly. And for me, I'm picturing it now, and it's quite a shock. And then for the next day, for that person who delivered the beating to come into the staff room and say, basically give us a warning by saying, I know that you've seen what happened, but you keep your mouth shut, by telling us that we were all fantastic yesterday and now we dealt with it. We didn't deal with it, you did. You beat the shit out of him. Now I've got to walk past him every single day, and he knows that I know. That's one of the reasons that the prison system's never going to reform people. It's always a us v them, and I get it. There has to be someone in authority, but there's just a level of just beating the shit out of people for no good reason. And the prison service is like that across the board. You speak to cons and they say, oh, where you from, Gov? And you'll tell them and you go, oh, you don't want to go to that prison if you work the way you do, because they just beat the shit out of you over there. Like, they run the prison. Now, most prisons are basically run by prisoners, because there's 1,000 prisoners to 200 staff at the very most. So if they wanted to at any point, let's be realistic about it, they could turn the prison over, but it's about having, I think, more of a rapport and just being human about things. Let's be realistic. Like I say, if they want to turn the place over, they could do.